How do you identify a female narcissist? Not only do they tend to fly under the radar a little more often than male narcissists, but their toxic behaviors are often attributed to the fact that they're a mother or that they're more emotional than their male counterparts, among other things. But trust me when I tell you that they are just as toxic as any other narcissist, if not more so. We're going to talk about it. You might already know that narcissists in general, regardless of their sex, will continuously manipulate you to get what they want. They usually show certain symptoms pretty universally. These symptoms might include grandiosity, an inflated sense of self-importance, and they do tend to feel superior to other people around them, whether or not they say that out loud. Since their feelings of superiority are typically bloated versions of the truth, most narcissists, whether they are male or female, will spend quite a lot of time focusing on reinforcing their fragile self-perceptions, and that tends to lead to various forms of manipulation. When a lot of people think about narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, they think of men who are more often stereotyped as more violent or full of rage. And most narcissism experts will tell you that these stereotypes will often manifest in a narcissistic male when they do feel threatened that their source of supply will suddenly disappear, or, if we're being honest, when they feel that they have been crossed in any way. But despite popular assumption, narcissistic women are just as toxic and nearly as plentiful. Studies vary on actual numbers and percentages, but in general, researchers estimate that just over half of all diagnosed narcissists are men. But those are diagnosed narcissists. And you and I both know that most people who have the toxic qualities of a narcissist, they're not likely to be diagnosed. With that being said, I personally think the numbers are probably pretty equal. In addition to the fact that narcissistic women slide under the radar a little too often because they're mothers or whatever, there's the fact that fewer men are willing to admit to themselves or anyone else that they might be being abused by a woman. For that reason, fewer women are reported and diagnosed with NPD. So what are the key identifiers of a narcissistic female? Well, clearly, we have plenty of narcissistic women around the world. And if you are a child of a narcissistic mother, you probably already know how true that is based on your own firsthand experience. But whether or not your mother is or was a narcissist, you might not know the signs of a narcissistic female. So I'm going to cover those for you right now. First up, women who have NPD will express anger differently than men with NPD. A lot of people will assume that the malignant narcissist who becomes explosive and aggressive must be male, right? That couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, women with NPD can be the same. There are a shocking amount of physically and emotionally abusive women, and it doesn't only affect their children. Some women will even physically and or emotionally abuse their partners, male, female, or otherwise. They might also abuse their friends, coworkers, or subordinates at work, their siblings, their parents, or anyone they feel is less than or otherwise wrong in any way, to put it nicely. A narcissistic female is far more likely to use her sexuality to get attention as well as to manipulate a person. This is true for straight females and gay females and every female in between. While those who are just histrionic, tend to do that, they use their sexuality to get what they want, narcissistic females are far more dangerous than your standard histrionic female. Why is that? It's because this female will use her sexuality, her appearance across the board, indiscriminately. This narcissistic female will use her femininity, her beauty, whatever she has going for her across the board to get what she wants. This could be getting a job. This could have to do with her boyfriend or her husband, getting him to say it's okay that she spent an extra $50 or $50,000, whatever it is in their situation. It's all about using their sexuality to get what they want. A narcissistic female will have no sense of boundaries. She will step all over yours and everyone else's, and sometimes she'll even make you think that's what you wanted in the first place. They have this shocking lack of empathy, just like every other narcissist, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've talked about that a lot, but in general, narcissistic females' lack of empathy kind of throws you because even sometimes they're like the caregiver type, so they really seem very empathetic, but when you look closer, you realize they're just doing what they think they need to do to get what they want from you. At the very moment that you don't agree with them or do what they want you to do, they punish you subtly, and sometimes not so subtly. Some common ways female narcissists punish you for not doing what they want include withholding affection or attention, or by making you feel really guilty to the point that you really feel like you have no other choice other than to beg for their forgiveness. Sound familiar? They will gaslight you, manipulate you, sometimes covertly, but often blatantly and without remorse. And of course, as I said, many are physically abusive as well. Number 2, women with NPD appear to be martyrs. These women are more likely to play the victim or the put upon martyr. They might even sacrifice more than is necessary, or appear to at least, in an attempt to get praise and attention from people around them. Plus, they are certain, and they expect you to know and recognize that their pain is worse than the pain of anyone else, and that they suffer more than everyone else. To be fair, this is usually seen in women who might be considered more covert narcissists, but any narcissistic female can, and often does, display this trait. Number 3, they're extremely superficial. Male narcissists are just as superficial as females, of course, and they both care a whole lot about image. But women, they're concerned more about their material items, such as having the best house, car, etc. in some cases, and they will brag about how wonderful their kids are, all the while telling their kids the opposite behind closed doors. They do this to hide their own insecurities, just like their male counterparts. They may or may not want designer, name brand, everything, and whatever they prefer, they will most definitely assume and act like the other choice is wrong. So there are a lot of other qualities of narcissistic females, and we're going to talk about those. In fact, I'm going to share with you some clips from a live stream that I did with Dana recently where we talked about this very thing. So take a look. So just in general, how often do you hear people talk about female narcissists?
You know, what's interesting about that is I hear it more so in terms of like narcissistic mothers.
Yeah.
And not so, I mean, I think more and more with the awareness and everything, more men or gay women are coming forward and talking about their experiences like in the dating world with female narcissists. But I think by and large, that's like this huge kind of unexplored or unexamined territory where a lot of this problematic behavior just gets glossed over or justified as, you know, for any variety of reasons, like, oh, she's just difficult because she's attractive, or she's just difficult because she's a woman, right? Or because she's a redhead, or for any number of reasons, and it's not correctly identified. Or maybe even kind of quote unquote misdiagnosed or misread as borderline personality.
Yes.
I've seen that like a lot clinically where it's like, oh, well, she's borderline. It's like, you know what? She might have a lot of like borderline traits, but like there's this huge level of like narcissistic or even antisocial behavior. And I think when people misidentify it as borderline, then it keeps the person stuck thinking like, oh, if they can just get into DBT, they'll be fine.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the female narcissist dress code. One more reason female narcissists do tend to fly under the radar so frequently is that a lot of us would expect all of them to at least attempt to appear attractive on some level. They are narcissists after all. We might expect they would appear to be overdone or expensively dressed, and we might think these women are the same ones we would see in the plastic surgeon's office to get their weekly Botox or whatever. Well, in some cases, we'd be absolutely right. But despite this unfortunate stereotype, women who care how they appear can be narcissists or not. See, the way a woman chooses to present herself, it really has nothing to do with toxic narcissism. It's really all about their personality traits and specifically how they perceive and treat others in their lives. And let's just put it out there. Just as many female narcissists will judge women who focus on their appearance, and in those cases, these women might be very practical in their attire or even completely neglect their appearance. This is when you'll see them calling other women shallow or materialistic, or worse, they will imply that these women are somehow less than them or beneath them because, you know, they're attempting to get too much attention, to put it politely. And then there are the female narcissists who are involved with certain types of religion or spirituality who may dress as dictated by their faith. In those cases, they will judge and feel superior to women who dress in other fashions. They'll even judge the women who are in the same faith but who don't, in their opinion, follow all of the specific rules their religion requires. For example, if a religion says don't cut your hair and a woman gets her ends trimmed, the narcissistic female might tell everyone she knows how that woman is a bad person because she got her ends trimmed. In other words, regardless of what her physical look happens to be, this woman will judge anyone who chooses to look different than she does. The narcissistic female is always right, no matter what, and I promise you, my friend, she will not hesitate to tell you all about it. She is extremely jealous and competitive. Narcissistic women are highly competitive, and they will become jealous very easily. They must be known as either the prettiest or most successful or most endearing or smartest or whatever their particular version of best happens to be. And watch out if you've got it going on yourself, my friend, because if you are a woman who makes them feel threatened in any way at all, they will most definitely viciously bully you and shame you and exile you from any social group if they can. They will even do this to their own daughters, often. You must remember that there are no limits to which a narcissist will not stoop to get their needs met.
So what's your experience been?
Well, I think you're spot on when you say that more narcissistic mothers are, brought to the forefront than just women in dating situations. But like you said, with awareness comes awareness. I think for one thing, men in general, I think they're less likely to admit even to themselves that they are being abused when it's just emotional. But not that it's just emotional, but when there's no physical abuse, but even when there's some physical abuse from woman to man or even man to man, I think they are less likely to say, I've been abused in general. What do you think? Is that possible?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Or they minimize it. I think this is common for anybody that's even in like a physically abusive relationship. Like they'll downplay, like, oh, if they're getting pinched or shoved or slapped or even hit periodically, to kind of minimize it. Especially, I think that the challenge is if the abuser is smaller than the target, then it's sort of like, well, why didn't you stand up for yourself? Or why didn't you do anything? Or why did you stay? And most of the time it's out of fear that this person's actually going to leave if they assert themselves, or they're afraid that their behavior is going to escalate and that they are going to kill them, or any number of reasons. And so much of abuse, unless it's extreme, like outrageous, like daddy of five kind of stuff, like to that level of like emotional and psychological abuse, it flies under the radar of most people. But I will say, actually, I take that back. Even with the daddy of five stuff, if you go and you look at the comments for a lot of his videos and videos from like Philip DeFranco that was trying to out him, people were still justifying it.
Oh, yeah.
So this stuff, unless a person's being like extremely beaten up and put in the hospital, it just doesn't register as abuse. And that's a problem. And that's why we're here.
While this list is certainly not all-encompassing, it gives you a general overview of female narcissists and their differences from male narcissists with behaviors. So this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, what do you think? Do you know a female narcissist, or do you think you do? And if so, what were your experiences like? What would you add to this list? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life, and hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm going to leave for you here and there, and hit that subscribe button right over there so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.